Hello world of YouTube, and welcome to List Week 2024. I know it's later than I would normally do it. I thank you for bearing with me as I kind of took some time to really decompress after the frenzy that was the end of last year. But this week, from here through Saturday, we're going to be doing lists of the best and worst that I experienced in the worlds of music and gaming, starting with a new list. Longtime viewers of the channel know that I like to do new lists on my list week from time to time. Some stick around, some don't, some grow in the case of the best games list that I've continued to do for the last handful of years. And since I've done those best games lists, I have been playing newer games at a higher frequency each subsequent year. This year was no exception. In fact, that's the reason why I was able to pull this list together. I played enough games that I played 5 that I would deem bad enough to shit on in a worst of the year video. Will that trend continue and I do a top 10 worst next year? God, I hope not. There were some stinkers this year that I'd seen getting shat on that I didn't play to spare myself, but that didn't stop me from experiencing these. So we're gonna break them down. My 5 worst games of the year. Give it a like if you're excited, and let's get started.
The elevator pitch of a game can sometimes hook me in enough that I'll bite and chew for longer than I might have otherwise if it had started to sour on what the game presents. That's part of the reason I sank a decent chunk into Star Wars Outlaws, even if Ubisoft was making some wild decisions that weren't paying off for them. I did still find myself enjoying that new Prince of Persia. When I realized that I was more invested in the side quest with Lando Calrissian involving winning back his lucky chip in the relatively mediocre card minigame and its already pretty damn boring excuse of an open Star Wars story, I had realized I lost the plot. Admittedly, you can tell the dev team tried to put a bevy of things in this world in some really niche ways to maybe pull you out of this story whose twist is so obvious I saw it from a mile away. But those deviations aren't that exciting. I don't want to bet on horses in fucking Star Wars. The gameplay around it isn't all that enthralling either, and in fact was so maligned, an update made stealth entirely optional. Which, in all honesty, was not even a big issue to me, and rather took issue with things like the space combat and the flight controls, which were so goddamn non-intuitive. Here's an example of how badly this game fails to be exciting. There was a climactic escape from this enemy base that involves no chase, but forces you to use the speeder bike with no real tension to the sequence of events. Coupled with huge maps filled with not a lot to do, and it's easy to see why it's ended up here. I was really hoping this game would evoke that Shadows of the Empire energy, considering you aren't playing as a Jedi and it takes place in relatively the same time, because I love that game and its story. Star Wars Outlaws just wasn't it, man. A game with interesting ideas at the very least, but does the very least with them. Sometimes when enough twists are put on a foundation, it can create something new. While imitation is often seen as a form of flattery, the cocktail that sees some of those twists reverse closer to the roots within Square Enix's Foamstars is honestly mostly misguided above all else. I think the hero shooter adaptation in lieu of just having an arsenal isn't as interesting. The surfing is a neat spin on the travel ideas, but that foam is the opposite of appealing to me visually. Personally, not as eye-catching as the sunshiny and ink-filled focus throughout Splatoon. Plus, it's non-essential to the gameplay throughout Foamstars in a way that does happen in Splatoon, but not within its flagship mode. The foam as a means of damage and traversal is a stackable eyesore that can also be intrusive, considering the main shtick is to focus on hitting people. The actual point of winning a game is neat, with its star player being the scoring point mechanic, but as someone who's had to depend on teammates that weren't doing well, and being the teammate who was sucking too hard to help defend it, creates a shift in energy that can be hard to do for teams that feels disheartening in a sense. It's not 1, but 2 games on this list that were also free via PlayStation Plus, and this one was free out of the gate, which made me feel like Square didn't have much faith in it. You could say I wrote this game off too quickly considering the amount of time I put into it, but the feel of this game was just not it. The fact that only a year later and the games aren't the easiest to hop into might be a reaffirmation of that too. Honestly, if the one above this was more of a game, this would have easily ended up in the second spot. It's amazing that Disney basically commissioned 2 hero shooters in 1 year, and both ended up on both lists this week. Marvel Rivals is in tomorrow's vid though, and Star Wars Hunters is my 3rd worst game of the year. On paper, I'd be interested in a concept like this, but why in the 9 hells did Zynga make this? Look, get that bag, I guess, dev team, but I've never thought they made games that felt all that fun to play. Sure, the base game here is a hero shooter, but none of the heroes have any good weight to them. It has a cheap feeling, which, yeah, it's free, but is it worth it? Especially when the aforementioned game in tomorrow's video was good enough to end up on that list and was also free? Hell no. On top of that, most of the heroes aren't worth waiting to try and shouldn't be locked away behind the paywall. Hello? How the fuck did this game get to keep living and a game like Concord had its cord pulled right out the gate? Something, late-stage capitalism really killing art fields and AAA gaming crashing out in pockets. It's a subject all around the table talk, but games like this and another on the list just really showcase some of the negative sides of this industry in gross splendor. Just a really poorly constructed experience through and through. It's an example of free gaming having its glaring shortcomings, invasive feelings and all. Look, I'm all for a game with good intentions and wanting to give a good message, and I very much endorse the message of a game like Silent Hill: The Short Message. But even in that aforementioned short timeline, there's not much of a game here. It feels like a glorified after-school special with the worst kind of walking scripted sequences in its lane. And that's not to shit-talk the hallway walking simulator genre. I played a different game in its field this year and had a much better time than this game. It's kind of a shame, too, because this game does look very good, and I enjoy the monster design, and I think that it ties well into what it's trying to do with its story for as short as it is. But again, the reason why this is here is because for all that it's trying to aim for, it's not the worst thing I've played, because what you do play is fine enough, but it's still not worth what little time you would put into it, if not to just indulge in something a little meatier that doubles down on enforcing the message this game is trying to promulgate. Not only am I anti-suicide, I'm anti-Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Because this game, for what it stands for, what it delivers on, and how poorly it delivers on it, all suck. But everybody knows that. In fact, the developers seem to know that, because what makes it even worse is that I sat down and played this game knowing it was bad, only for its shit half-can story to be completely wasted sans one character's death, now that the long game that the team has been working on over the last year finally wrapped. It feels like the crusty shit broiled at the top of this lasagna of, I'll admit, brief, but very repetitive, monotonous gameplay fueling a story that is nowhere near as interesting as the concept may be on paper. Ironically enough, it's also sad because the best part about this game shows that in 25 years, the only real memorable part about anybody's time in Metropolis, video game-wise, are flying through fucking rings. This game sucks. Easily the worst game I played this year. Its biggest benefit, similarly to Silent Hill: A Short Message, is that it is so short, but the gameplay is really not worth it. I also almost lost my game, because I put an afternoon into it, got halfway through it, went to go play it later on that evening, and had to restart because the servers were down. And that reaffirmed that, man, this game does suck. And is a great glimpse into the potential worldview of gaming in your average consumer who doesn't look at indie games, who doesn't have access to the tools that show them what games are really popping off, and is stuck in this world. And I feel for that person, because if this is all you're seeing coming out, you are missing on a world of quality shit just under the surface. If you want a good glimpse into it, come back tomorrow for my best of the year video. Let's go to the outro. This game fucking blows.
those are my picks for the worst games that came out in 2024 that I played. Thank you for watching. If you like this, give it a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I usually drop 2 to 4 vids a week depending on what I've got going on, but considering it is my list week, I've got 4 more videos that I'll be dropping on each subsequent day. Tomorrow is my best games of the year list, so if you want to see what I thought were infinitely better than these 5 stinkers, come back tomorrow. But either way, thank you for watching this. I'm gonna go. I've been Viral Rack. You guys have a good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.